Hey boys, I'm Hayden. This week's topic is like the differences between gender identity and sexual orientation and stuff like that. I guess first I want to touch on something Kaden was saying about how there are more straight trans guys than gay trans guys. That makes sense because there are also more straight cis guys than gay cis guys because straight people tend to be in the majority still, unless, like, in my life, they definitely aren't in the majority, but, like, just in general in the world, straight people still the majority. But yeah, so, I don't know. They aren't related in like the lesbians turning into butch lesbians want to be trans guys because most of the time they just want to be masculine and they don't want to be trans guys. And like same with gay guys and trans women and different stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely two different things. I know that, like, we've talked about this before, where, like, with the LGBT issues, where T gets tacked on the end and then kind of ignored. I think that trans people should lead all LGBT organizations, because, okay, this isn't actually, like, serious, but, like, I just think that, like, when a trans person is running a queer organization, not only are you getting the trans issues covered, but they also tend to pay more attention. Like, trans people tend to be less one-minded than queer people, like, which is nothing personal. It's just, like, a lot of queer people just don't know what's going on with trans people. And a lot of, like, trans people have gone through the queer experience as well as their trans experience. So it just sort of, yeah. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about my progression too. I actually, for the first 14 years of my life, first 13 years of my life, identified as a straight girl because I didn't understand gay. I had no concept of trans. I didn't even know what trans was. And, like, I didn't really, like, I always felt like something was wrong, but I never knew, like, what it was. And then in 9th grade, I was like, oh, maybe I'm bisexual. And then in 10th grade, I came out as a lesbian. And then I sort of switched back to being like, well, I mostly like girls, but I'm kind of afraid of male genitals, so I'm not gonna date guys, but if the right guy came along, I would date them. And then, I found out about, like, genderqueer and stuff, and my sexuality was pretty much the same. And then when I came out as trans, or, like, between then, I sort of started identifying more. I always just call myself queer. It hasn't really changed since then. I guess what I want to say is, like, I know I like girls, but I'm, like, terrified of being seen as straight just because the queer community has played such a huge role in my life. But I guess, like, yeah, but I mean, I also, like, if the right guy came along, I mean, I feel like because my gender is so different and out of the norm in some ways, like, for me to close myself off to dating other genders would be, like, really shitty. So I always call myself queer or pansexual. And, like, the reason why I use queer is because, the reason why I started using the word queer is because queer is, like, the umbrella term, So, like, for me, like, queer means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and everything that falls under that list. And I kind of fall under everything at that list, or have at some point. So, that's why I use that. And that's why I think it's, like, a really awesome, like, I am queer. So, yeah. Questions this week. Alex wanted to know if there's a song that has, like, a lot of significance for us. It doesn't really, like, have, like, specific significance, but, like, one of my really good, like, feel-good songs is The Origin of Love, out of Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And just, like, a lot of the songs on that CD, soundtrack. Like, the other night, like, I was having, like, a really shitty night, but I was over in my friend's room, and then we were listening to the soundtrack and singing, and it was just really, like, made me feel so much better. And I have a couple other CDs like that. Another thing that's been, like, a really good, like, feel-good music for me is, Sufjan, Sufjan Stevens. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce his first name, and he's just, like, really fantastic. So yeah, and then Kaden wanted to know, like, if our area has a queer youth dance. So I'm gonna put in plugs for 2, because I live in Boston, but I'm from Albany. Albany, in June, has alternative prom, and it's the best thing ever, and yeah, and then, the Boston area has Bagley Prom, which is Boston area lesbian and gay youth, I think. Don't quote me on that. And they have a Halloween dance, and then they have a prom. And I haven't been to it, and I haven't heard much about it, but I know that we have it. So, yeah, I haven't aged out of Bagley, I just, like, haven't been going. But another really, like, a really, really, really fantastic resource in the Boston area that I have found in the past couple weeks is the Boston Glass, GLASS Center. They have weekly groups for trans youth. They have, like, a gender identity group, a men's group, a women's group, and then they have drop-in hours, which I think are 2 to 6 Monday through Thursday, and then 2 to 5 on Fridays. And they also, like, do therapy, and they do help with job counseling, and, like, anything, if you name it and you dream it, like, they're doing it. And I have been going to their gender group, and it's just been really nice. And it's a 13 to 25, so it's, like, a nice, like, it's harder to age out of than some of the other groups. Like, Albany groups are all 13 to 18. So, yeah, that's a Boston resource, and then I guess an Albany resource in case anyone's watching from Albany. If you're over 18, twice monthly there's a trans group on Tuesdays. There's just, like, drop-in hours, I think the first Tuesday of every month, and then there's a discussion group the third Tuesday of every month. And then if you're between 13 and 18, there's a youth discussion group. Actually, I think there was a 12-year-old there this week. So, like, basically, if you're a trans youth, there's the fourth Tuesday of every month, there's a trans youth group in the evening. So, yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. And, like, I know that, like, a lot of other community centers also have trans groups. Cleveland's, we tried to go when I was in Cleveland having surgery, and, that didn't work out, because there was no one there, but I bet that it would be cool if it actually happened. So yeah. My question, talk about some of the queer youth programming in your area, because it's awesome that a lot of places have stuff going on. If you don't really know, talk about the club you're in, if you're in a club, like if you have a GSA at your school or whatever. So, yeah, that's my question. Or whatever. You should talk about that this week. And then one last thing of business. I will make a legitimate video tomorrow, but we will be looking for, I'm actually going to take the Miles's Friday spot, and we're going to be looking for a Thursday boy. So if you're interested in being a new Thursday boy, keep an eye out, and I will be posting a casting video soon. We're gonna have a few more guidelines than last time, but it's not gonna be anything. It's not gonna be anything like horrible. It's just gonna be like a little bit of like a pre-screening type thing. So I'll post that, and then you can post an audition video in response, and hopefully in a couple weeks we will have a new Thursday boy, and hopefully Alex will get his editing and whatnot together. So we have a full 5-day week going again, because that would be really awesome. So yeah, have a great weekend, everyone.